He said the airline needed it to lock the fare. I gave Tyler my ID across the table, and he snapped a photo so quick I barely saw the flash. 7 days later, I was $40,000 in debt. Not in theory, on paper, with account numbers I'd never seen and a welcome packet from a bank I'd never used. You don't think a life can tilt in one ordinary week until it does, and suddenly, your name feels like a stranger, wearing your coat. I'm 74. My hands shake in the morning, but I still sign my own checks, and I still know when someone is talking fast to hide a hole. Tyler has been talking fast for a year now. New job about to take off. New friends who call him T. New plans that sound like air. Last Monday, he stopped by with coffee and that sheepish grin he wore as a boy when he cracked a window with a soccer ball. "Gran, I found a crazy cheap flight to Denver for Mom's birthday," he said. "They need the traveler's ID to hold it. Can I snap it? I'll book you 2 later when they release more seats." I should have said, "Send me the link." I should have said, "We'll book it together." Instead, I put my wallet on the placemat and slid out my driver's license like I was handing him a slice of pie. Trust is a habit. So is doubt. Mine are twins that fight in the same small kitchen. He took the picture, kissed my forehead, and left his coffee half full. In the sink afterward, I watched my reflection in the steel. Soft face, gray hair pulled back, eyes that still expect better from people they love. I told myself it was sweet of him to think of a trip. I told myself not to overthink. I have talked myself into many small discomforts for the sake of peace. They add up like lint. On Wednesday, a courier brought a thick white envelope with my name printed neat and wrong, the middle initial I never use. "Welcome," it said. "Activate now." I called the number on the back of the card, and a cheerful woman asked for the passcode you set up. I told her I had set up nothing. Silence, then a new cheerfulness, tighter at the edges. "Let me connect you with fraud." The call dropped. I set the card on the counter like it might bite. Thursday evening, my email pinged with a receipt. Furniture warehouse. 2,800 and something. Delivery scheduled to Tyr at an apartment I have never visited because it's messy right now, Gran. I sat very still. The clock on the stove blinked 12 as if time itself refused to move forward without my say-so. I called Tyler. Straight to voicemail. I texted, "Call me." I added a heart, as if that might make my worry sound less like suspicion. He answered an hour later, breezy. "Gran, sorry, bad reception. At the gym, you okay?" I got a credit card I didn't open. I kept my voice even, the way you speak to a nervous dog. "And a receipt. Your name is on the delivery." "Oh, that. Yeah, I used my card. But sometimes they verify with the address. It's fine. I'll handle it." It came to me. Because I'm routing things through your place while I switch leases. Safer. I let the lie sit between us like a wet coat dripping onto clean floor. "Bring the paperwork tonight," I said. "We'll look at it together." He said he would. He didn't. Friday morning, a call from a bank I don't bank with. "We're just confirming your cash advance request, Mrs. Rowe." My hand went cold on the receiver. Polite people become very precise when danger is involved. "No," I said, each letter separate. "You are not." The man cleared his throat. "Then we may need to freeze the account pending verification." "Freeze it," I said. Freeze every account with my name that I didn't open. After I hung up, I brewed tea I couldn't taste. I took out a notebook and wrote Saturday at the top. Under it, a list. Bank branch, police report, credit bureaus, attorney. I wrote them slow, like a spell. The kettle popped and settled. The house was quiet the way a church is quiet, after the last parishioner leaves, not peace so much as space. Nina called around noon, voice bright. "Mom, Tyler says you're in a tizzy over some mail. He's trying to surprise you, you know. Don't ruin it." I looked at the window where my lace curtain lifts when the furnace kicks in. "I'm not ruined," I said. "I'm awake." "Mom, I need Tyler's keys and I need my ID back. Today." She sighed, annoyed the way busy daughters get when old mothers insist on details. "He's at work." "Then you can bring them." A quiet stretched long. "We'll come by after dinner," she said finally. When she hung up, I put my ID back in my wallet. Empty space where trust used to sit. I set the wallet beside my teacup and watched the light crawl across my table. I am not dramatic. I am not cruel. I am old enough to know that softness without a spine turns into pulp. Tonight, I would sleep with my purse by my bed. Tomorrow, I would start making calls. For now, I rinsed the cup, wiped the table, and folded the dish towel along its crease, the way I always have, even on the days my life changes without asking me first. I didn't even finish my tea before the next knock came. It wasn't polite, hesitant. No, it was sharp, impatient, like someone who thought they had every right to barge in. I opened the door to see my grandson, Evan, standing there with a look that mixed worry and annoyance. "Grandma, we need to talk," he blurted out without so much as a hello. He stepped in, glancing around my living room as if searching for something. I could smell his cologne, expensive, strong, the kind his mother would have picked out for him. "I just spoke to Dad," he continued, "and he says you've been acting strange, blocking accounts, refusing calls. He said you might be upset because of some mix-up." Mix-up. That was the word they'd chosen for it. I motioned for him to sit down, but he stayed standing, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. "Evan," I said quietly, "do you know what your father asked me for last week?" He frowned, caught off guard. "No?" "He asked for my ID, said it was to book a flight for me. I trusted him, handed it over. A week later, I'm staring at a letter from the bank saying I'm $40,000 in debt. My name on a loan I never took." His eyes widened, but he didn't speak. "That's not a mix-up," I continued. "That's theft. By my own child." "Grandma, I'm sure—" "Don't," I cut him off. "You're young, Evan. You still think family always means safety. But sometimes family is where the knife comes from." He looked down at his shoes, guilt flickering in his face before vanishing behind something harder. Defensiveness, maybe. "Dad says you're overreacting." "Of course he does." I stood up, the old ache in my knees reminding me that I'd been holding too much for too long. "You can tell your father that from now on, if he wants anything from me, he can get it in writing, through a lawyer." For the first time, Evan seemed to really look at me. Maybe he noticed that my voice didn't shake, that my hands were steady, that I wasn't asking for explanations, just giving facts. He didn't stay long. When the door shut behind him, the silence felt heavier than before. But it was mine. Completely mine. I went to my desk and opened the drawer where I kept a faded envelope. James's handwriting on the front. My name in the corner. Inside was the letter he wrote me just before his surgery, the one I'd read only once. "If there's ever a day they forget who you are, Edith, remind them. Not with shouting, but with silence they can't buy their way out of." I smiled, faintly. Message received, James. Message received. By Saturday morning, the kitchen table was buried under paperwork. Statements, envelopes, legal pads filled with my own careful handwriting. I had made a list the night before, each task numbered and underlined. I've learned that when you're in a storm, you don't flail. You row. First on the list was the bank. I walked there instead of taking the bus. 3 long blocks in the brittle February air, every step reminding me I still had my legs, still had my will. Inside, the lobby smelled faintly of printer ink and floor polish. The young man at the fraud desk wore a badge that said, Miles. He called me ma'am until I gave him my name and account number. Then his face changed. I watched the polite expression drain away as he clicked through the records. These accounts were opened online, he said. Applications show your driver's license number, full name, address, date of birth. Everything matches our records. Yes, I said evenly. Because my son took my license. He hesitated, glancing at the empty chair beside me. Do you have proof of that? I looked him straight in the eye. If someone steals the keys to your house and unlocks the door, do you still need proof they entered? That got him quiet. He typed something, printed a form, and slid it across the desk. We'll freeze the accounts immediately. You'll also need to file a police report and submit a fraud affidavit to each creditor. That will start the dispute process. Good. A direction. Something to do that wasn't just sitting in my kitchen replaying Tyler's grin as he pocketed my trust. The police station was my next stop. The young officer at the front desk couldn't have been older than 25. Acne still dotted his chin. He asked if I was sure I wanted to involve family. I told him I wanted to involve the law. He printed my statement, stapled it to a case number, and gave me a copy. It felt heavier than paper. It felt like the first stone in a wall I was building between myself and the people who thought I wouldn't fight. When I got home, the phone was ringing. I let it go to voicemail. Later, I listened. Nina's voice, clipped. Mom, can we please just talk about this before you make it into something it's not? Tyler says it's all going to be fine. You just misunderstood. Misunderstood. The word tasted bitter. I went to my desk, slid the police report into a folder marked for attorney, and placed it on top of the stack. Outside, the street was quiet, the way it gets before a snow. I stood at the window a long time, thinking about how quickly people will spend what's not theirs, and how slowly they'll return what's yours. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to shout. I was going to follow every step, sign every form, call every number. If they wanted to call me cold for that, fine. Cold keeps. On Sunday, I made myself oatmeal, ate half, and pushed the bowl away. Paperwork goes down easier than food when your name's been borrowed. I set the phone on speaker and started with the 3 credit bureaus. Hold music, surveys, a robot that kept calling me Agnes. I spelled it twice and didn't apologize for my tone. I requested a freeze on all files, then a 90-day fraud alert that would warn any lender tempted to be lazy. I wrote the confirmation numbers in block letters. I've learned people take you more seriously when you write like a stamp, not a whisper. The next call was to each creditor listed in the welcome letters. I repeated the story until the words turned dull from use. I did not apply. My license was photographed without consent. I have a police report. I'll send it within the hour. They asked if the suspect was a stranger. He isn't, I said, and left it there. Being a mother means you learn to close certain doors gently. Being a mother at 74 means you learn to lock them. I scanned the report at the library because my old printer chews paper like a goat. The girl at the desk, nose ring, kind eyes, asked if I needed help. I told her I'd managed worse with less. She smiled the way people do when they don't know whether to argue or take notes. When I left, snow had started, light as flour. I pulled my scarf higher and thought of all the recipes I've followed in my life and how none of them warned you that trust can curdle. Back home, I called an attorney whose name a widow from church had pressed into my palm after service. Elder law, the card said. The receptionist offered Thursday. Today, I answered. She paused, then found me a gap at 4. I washed my hair and put on the navy sweater with no pills. Dignity isn't a costume, but it helps to wear something that reminds you you're still yourself. He was younger than I expected, mid-40s, careful eyes. He listened without interruptions, only writing when I stopped to breathe. "We'll do 3 things," he said. "Limited power of attorney, so we can act in your name for disputes. A revocation of any prior permissions, even informal ones. And a letter instructing family to direct all contact about this matter to our office." He watched my face on the last part. "That includes your daughter." I signed. My hand didn't shake. On the way home, Nina called again. "Mom, Tyler's a mess. He says his friend used the information, not him. He was trying to help. Can we just handle this privately?" "No," I said. "We can handle it properly. Do you want to send your grandson to jail?" "I want my name back," I answered. "The law can decide the rest." Silence. Then the old softener. "You know how he struggles." "So do I." I kept my voice plain. "I struggle with stairs. I still climb them." That night, I changed every password and turned on 2-step verification for anything that would allow it. I tucked my checkbook in the bread box, ridiculous and effective, and took the spare mailbox key off the hook. I had the lock replaced in the morning. The postman didn't ask why. Older women get treated like we're breaking by default. Sometimes that's a blessing. No one stands in your way. By noon, a furniture warehouse called, flustered. They couldn't confirm delivery because the card was frozen. Could I approve it another way? "I could," I said, "but I won't." I gave them the case number and asked for the order address again. "Same apartment Tyler won't let me see." I wrote it down, the unit number neat as a threat. In the afternoon, a bank investigator rang. Smooth voice, practiced empathy. He asked for a timeline, then circled back to the moment I handed over my license. "Why did you give it?" "Because I raised him," I said. "I forgot he grew up." He was quiet a second longer than polite. "We'll flag all activity, Mrs. Rowe. You may still receive bills. Don't pay anything in dispute." When we hung up, I made tea and stood at the sink, palms on the cool edge the way I did the night my husband died, and the house felt too big for one heartbeat. Back then I learned, grief doesn't shrink to fit you. You grow to meet it. This felt similar, only drier, more practical. Grief with forms. Near dusk, headlights swept my window and halted. Tyler. He didn't knock right away, just sat in his car, hood up, music pulsing faintly. When he finally came to the door, he smelled like mint gum and nerves. "Gran, this is blown out of proportion," he said as soon as I opened it. "My buddy Lincoln handled the applications. I can fix it if you just stop the freezes. It messes up the process." "Your process," I said. He tried a smile I used to fall for when he was 6 and filthy from the creek. "Come on, we're family." "I know," I said, and let the words mean what they mean when they hurt. "Give me my house key." He stared at me like I'd spoken another language. I held out my hand and didn't move it. Slowly, he dug in his pocket and dropped the key onto my palm. It was warm from his body. I set it on the table, then stepped back so he could see the folder labeled with today's date, the attorney's card clipped on top, the police report beneath it. "This isn't a scene," I told him. "It's a record." His mouth hardened. "You're choosing them over me." "I'm choosing me over your excuses." We stood there in the small quiet. He shuffled, then looked toward the kitchen where I'd laid out 2 cups by habit. His face flickered. Regret or calculation? I couldn't tell. "Can I come in?" "You're already in," I said, "but not for long." He nodded, eyes bright in a way that wasn't tears. "You'll regret this," he said, soft, the way a threat pretends to be concern. "Maybe," I said, "but I won't forget." When the door closed behind him, the room felt larger. I washed the extra cup and put it away. Then I sat, pen in hand, and wrote one more line under today's list. Call insurance to add identity theft writer. I underlined it twice. I was done being the soft place where other people landed. From now on, I'd be the ground. I slept poorly that night. Not because of guilt, that ship had sailed years ago, but because my mind wouldn't stop sorting through memories like a woman sifting through an old jewelry box, deciding what was worth keeping. I thought of the Christmas mornings when Garrett's eyes would light up at the sight of his stocking, the way he'd grab my hand at crosswalks until he was almost 12. I thought of the first time Marissa came over, all perfume and loud laughter, and how James had given me a long, knowing look after she left. By morning, my resolve hadn't weakened. If anything, it had settled deeper into my bones. I made tea, buttered a slice of toast, and let the phone buzz in the other room until it gave up. The silence that followed was almost as sweet as the tea. At 10 a.m., Rebecca showed up again, hair damp from the shower, a crease between her brows. "Dad's furious," she said without a hello. "He's calling it a betrayal." "Betrayal?" I raised an eyebrow. He's got quite a flair for drama. She sat down, wrapping her hands around the mug I'd set out for her. "Grandma, he says they might have to sell the house if you don't reinstate the payments." I stirred sugar into my tea slowly. "That's not my problem. If you buy a house you can't afford without someone else footing the bill, you're not a homeowner. You're a tenant who doesn't pay rent." Rebecca gave a short laugh, but her eyes were wet. "I'm not laughing at you. I'm just realizing you've been carrying all of them for years." I didn't answer. It was a truth so obvious it didn't need my voice to give it weight. After she left, I decided to do something small but important. Something just for me. I took out the jewelry box James had given me on our 30th anniversary and removed the thin gold chain with the tiny sapphire pendant. I'd stopped wearing it after Marissa made a pointed remark about old-fashioned pieces at a family dinner. That day, I'd laughed and put it away. Today, I fastened it around my neck. By mid-afternoon, Garrett's voice came through the answering machine, tight and controlled. "Mom, we need to talk about a repayment schedule. Call me." No mention of last night's words. No apology. Just business. I deleted it. In the evening, I baked a small apple tart. The smell filled the house the way it used to when the kids were small. I thought about inviting a neighbor over to share it, but in the end, I sliced one generous piece for myself and wrapped the rest for Rebecca. There was a quiet satisfaction in choosing who received from me instead of giving by default. Later, I found myself in front of the mirror. I studied the woman there. Lines etched deep, yes, but eyes steady. For years, I'd confused endurance with kindness, giving with love. I'd mistaken my open hand for a full heart, when in truth, it was a leash they'd been tugging on. That night, I slept better. No sleeping pills. No late-night calls to soothe someone else's panic. Just me, my warm quilt, and the steady hum of the fridge. In the morning, I opened the curtains to sunlight and thought, perhaps I've only just started living. On Monday, the first envelope arrived. Thick, official, my name in block letters across the front. I slid it open with the butter knife and found a letter from one of the banks. We have received your fraud report. The account will remain frozen pending investigation. Please allow 60-90 days for resolution. I laid it flat on the table, smoothed it with my palm, and wrote the date in my notebook. 1 step done. 90 to go. By mid-morning, the phone rang again. This time, it was Marissa. She didn't bother with pleasantries. Agnes, I've been trying to stay out of this, but you're making things difficult for all of us. Garrett's stressed. Rebecca's upset. Rebecca is fine, I cut in. She's the only one who's asked if I'm all right. Marissa let out a short laugh, the kind that's meant to sound light but hides teeth. You know Garrett's intentions weren't bad. He was just trying to set something up for the future. His future, I said, on my credit. You're acting like a stranger, she said. That's because you've only known the version of me that let things slide. There was a pause, then her voice dropped. If you keep pushing this, it's going to get ugly. Family will pick sides. I almost told her they already had. Instead, I said, I'm not asking for sides. I'm asking for my name back. And I hung up. In the afternoon, I had an appointment at the lawyer's office to sign the limited power of attorney and formal revocation documents. He slid the papers toward me, and I signed each one with a deliberate hand. With every signature, I felt a thread snap loose from the net they'd tried to throw over me. You've taken all the right steps, he said, gathering the pages. Now it's a matter of keeping records and not letting anyone talk you into undoing this. I've spent years being talked into things, I said. That part of my life is over. Back home, I made a pot of vegetable soup. I ladled a jar for Sophie, the neighbor's granddaughter, who sometimes brought me groceries when the weather was bad. When she came to pick it up, she noticed the file folders stacked on the counter. Big project? She asked. Just cleaning up a mess, I said. She grinned. Bet you're good at that. That evening, I sorted through old papers. Bills Garrett had asked me to pay just this once, receipts for emergency repairs that somehow never happened. I kept them all. I wasn't planning revenge, but I wanted the truth in my hands. Truth is lighter than lies when you carry it long enough. Before bed, I wrote tomorrow's to-do list in my careful block letters. Call insurance about ID theft coverage. File delivery dispute with furniture store. Change locks on shed. I put the pen down and looked around the quiet kitchen. For years, I'd thought my stillness meant I was being left behind. Now I realized it meant I was finally standing still on my own terms. Tuesday began with the sound of the mailbox clanging shut. I stepped outside, wrapped in my robe, to find 3 envelopes and a glossy furniture catalog. The same store that had tried to deliver Tyler's order. I held it by the corner, like something dirty, and dropped it straight into the recycling bin. Inside, I opened the first envelope. Another creditor acknowledgement of my dispute. The second was from the police department, confirming my case was officially logged as identity theft, known suspect. The third was from the state's Elder Protection Office, notifying me that a social worker would be assigned. I made coffee and read each letter twice, letting the language settle in my bones. Known suspect. It looked so plain on the page, but I felt its weight. The world now recognized what I'd already known in my gut. At 10 Oaks sharp, I called my insurance company. A polite man named Robert explained the identity theft rider I could add to my homeowner's policy. Legal help, reimbursement for expenses, a dedicated fraud specialist. Yes, I said before he'd finished. Add it today. I wrote the policy update number in my notebook, underlined it, and drew a small star beside it. A victory, however small, deserved to be marked. After lunch, I phoned the furniture store and reached a woman named Janine in customer service. She had that flat, tired voice of someone who's been yelled at all morning. I'm calling about order number 542, I began. Yes, Mrs. Rowe, the one scheduled for the apartment on Mason Street. We've been notified of the freeze. Is there a problem? The problem, I said evenly, is that the purchase was made with stolen information. I'm disputing the charge, and I'd like your delivery crew to be aware they have no permission to leave items there. In fact, I'd appreciate a note on the order to call the police if anyone tries to claim it. A pause. Then, in a softer tone, I'll make sure it's flagged. I'm sorry this happened to you. I thanked her and hung up, feeling the smallest flicker of satisfaction. One more leak plugged. By mid-afternoon, the lawyer called. We've filed the revocation of all informal and formal permissions. No one, including family, can sign or act on your behalf now. That's exactly how I want it, I said. The rest of the afternoon, I worked through the shed. Tyler had borrowed tools over the years and returned only half. I replaced the padlock with a new one from the hardware store, then inventoried what was left. My late husband's workbench, the garden spade with my initials burned into the handle, a rust-flecked watering can. It felt good to know what was mine and keep it that way. Just before dinner, the phone rang again. Rebecca. Grandma, Dad's saying you've gone too far, that you're dragging strangers into family matters. Strangers? I said. You mean the police? The bank? The lawyer? She sighed. I told him you're just protecting yourself. He doesn't want to hear it. Then maybe it's time he listened to someone else. There was a pause, then her voice softened. I'm proud of you. After we hung up, I sat at the kitchen table, listening to the quiet hum of the fridge. Years ago, when James was alive, we'd talk through every big decision over dinner. Whether to fix the roof ourselves or hire a crew, whether to refinance the mortgage. He used to say, "You never lose by making your position clear." That night, I wrote in my notebook, position clear. Boundaries set. Locks changed. When I closed it, I noticed how light my shoulders felt. Not free yet. There was still work to be done, but lighter, as if each step was loosening the rope that had been tied there for years. For the first time since this began, I looked forward to tomorrow. Wednesday morning, the doorbell rang just after 9. Through the lace curtain, I saw a woman in a gray coat holding a clipboard. She had that official but kind look I've seen on nurses and librarians. Mrs. Rowe, I'm Dana Morales with the Adult Protective Services Unit. I'm here for our scheduled check-in. I let her in and offered coffee, which she accepted. She sat at the kitchen table, glancing around without prying, taking in the neat stacks of paperwork and the single gold pendant at my neck. I've read the report, she began, but I'd like to hear it in your own words. So I told her, briefly, without embroidery, how Garrett had asked for my ID under the guise of booking a flight, how accounts appeared in my name days later, The police report, the credit freezes, the lawyer's steps. "You moved quickly," she said when I finished. "I'm old," I replied. "Quick is relative. But I've learned that if you hesitate when someone takes from you, they'll take again before you finish deciding what to do." She nodded and jotted something down. "We can offer resources, support groups, legal aid, even counseling if you want it. And we can flag your information in certain systems so you're considered high risk for financial exploitation." "I'd appreciate that," I said, "but I'm not looking for sympathy, just safeguards." We went through a checklist: mail security, online accounts, emergency contacts. When she asked who I trusted with those, I hesitated only a moment. "Rebecca," I said, "and no one else." She left me with a folder of resources and her card clipped to the front. "You've done most of the hard work already," she said at the door. "The rest is just persistence." After she left, I made another pot of coffee and sat down with the file. Her words echoed in my mind. The rest is just persistence. I thought of all the years I'd persisted in silence, enduring small cuts for the sake of keeping the peace. That wasn't persistence. That was erosion. In the afternoon, I walked to the post office to send certified letters to each creditor, enclosing the police report and my sworn affidavit. The clerk stamped them with a heavy thunk that felt final, at least for now. Back home, I found a note slipped under my door. "Mom, we need to talk. G." No apology, no explanation. Just another invitation to negotiate my own boundaries away. I folded it once, slid it into the case folder, and made no call. Around 5, Rebecca stopped by to return the soup jar. "Dad's sulking," she said, hanging her coat on the chair. "He says you're trying to humiliate him." "I'm trying to protect myself," I said. She gave me a long look. "You're doing more than that. You're teaching me something." We ate toast and cheese at the table, and for the first time in weeks, the food had taste. After she left, I locked the door, pulled the curtains, and turned on the small lamp James and I had bought at a yard sale 40 years ago. Its warm light filled the room in a way I hadn't felt since this began. Safe, contained, mine. Before bed, I opened my notebook and wrote, "Safeguards in place. Help accepted. No calls returned." Then I added one more line, underlined twice. "Silence is not surrender." Thursday brought a thin layer of frost on the windows and a thicker layer of mail on the table. 2 more bank letters, one confirming an account freeze, the other requesting my signature for a formal dispute. I signed with my deliberate, stamp-like handwriting, slid the papers into an envelope, and set them by the door for the postman. After breakfast, I tackled the task I'd been putting off, changing every single online password. Not just the bank's, but email, utilities, even the grocery store account. Each one got a long, strange phrase I'd remember, but no one else could guess. I wrote them down in a small spiral notebook that now lives in the bread box beside my checkbook. Halfway through, the phone rang. It was Robert from the insurance company. "We've officially added the identity theft coverage," he said. "You'll get the policy writer in the mail, and I'll be your point of contact if anything else happens." "Thank you," I said. "I hope we don't speak often." He chuckled softly. "That's the goal." In the afternoon, I drove, something I hadn't done much lately, to the locksmith. I had a duplicate mailbox key made for Rebecca and ordered a high-security lock for the front door. "Family trouble?" the locksmith asked casually. "Security upgrade," I said, and left it at that. When I got home, The phone was blinking with a message from Garrett. "Mom, I'm not trying to hurt you. You're making this into something it's not. Let's meet, just the two of us. No lawyers." I listened twice, then pressed delete. Later, while dusting the shelves, I found the small cedar box James used to keep coins in. Inside was a folded sheet of paper in his handwriting. A note from years ago when we'd argued over whether to lend money to a cousin. "You can't keep people honest by paying for their mistakes," it read. I sat with that for a long time. At 4 p.m., the lawyer called. "The bank on the largest account has already provisionally credited back most of the charges," he said. "It's not final, but it's a strong sign." I thanked him and hung up, staring at the phone. Relief didn't flood me like I'd expected. Instead, it came in small, careful sips. This wasn't over. It was just the first loosening of the knot. That evening, Sophie stopped by with a bag of clementines. "Figured you could use some vitamin C," she said. We stood in the kitchen peeling them, the air filling with citrus. She didn't ask questions, and I didn't offer explanations. Sometimes kindness is just company without interrogation. Before bed, I made tomorrow's list. Call utility companies to set account passwords. Send certified letter to final creditor. Research personal credit monitoring. I closed the notebook and left it by the lamp. Outside, the frost was already forming again. Inside, the air felt warmer than it had in weeks. I thought, not for the first time, that maybe this was what regaining yourself felt like. Not a dramatic moment, but a steady series of small locks clicking into place. Friday was gray and still, the kind of winter day that makes even the postman move slower. I brewed coffee, buttered a slice of bread, and sat down with my notebook. Today's list stared back at me. 3 tasks, all simple, all tedious. I've learned those are the ones you can't put off, because they're the bricks in the wall that keeps trouble out. I started with the utility companies. The gas company put me on hold long enough to finish my coffee. But when a woman finally picked up, she listened carefully, added a verbal password to my account, and flagged it for no third-party changes. The water and electric companies took less time, but each required the same repetition. No one besides me is authorized to make changes, not even family. It felt strange to say out loud, but also freeing. Next was the certified letter to the final creditor. I walked it to the post office, the sky low and white above me. The clerk recognized me from earlier in the week and didn't ask questions, just stamped the envelope and slid the receipt toward me. When I got home, the phone rang. This time, it was Tyler himself. "Gran, please just listen," he said, voice low, almost coaxing. "I didn't mean for it to blow up like this. I can fix it if you'll just stop the freezes and let me work it out with the banks." "No," I said. "Why not? They're already making it harder for me to get a place." "Because the place you put me in is worse," I replied. He sighed, and I could hear the frustration in the way his breath hit the receiver. "You're making it impossible to fix this." "I'm making it impossible to keep doing it," I said, and hung up before he could answer. By mid-afternoon, the lawyer called with an update. 2 more creditors had provisionally removed the charges. "It's moving faster than I expected," he said. "That's because I keep every paper and answer every call," I told him. "I'm not waiting for anyone else to take care of me." Later, I heard a knock on the door, a soft, hesitant one. When I opened it, Rebecca stood there, holding a bag with a loaf of bread and some soup. "Dad's angry," she said quietly, "but I'm not here about him. I just thought you could use this." We sat in the kitchen, eating soup from mismatched bowls. She told me about work, about a friend moving away. For half an hour, we didn't mention Garrett or Tyler. It felt like breathing fresh air after being in a closed room too long. As she was leaving, she paused at the door. "You know," she said, "watching you do this, it's making me think about how I handle my own boundaries." I smiled. Better to set them before someone tests them. After she left, I checked the locks, drew the curtains, and sat with my notebook. I added one last task for tomorrow. Meet with Tyler, with lawyer present. It wasn't my idea. It had been offered by the lawyer as a mediation opportunity, but I agreed. Not to reconcile, but to hear the truth straight from his mouth, stripped of phone static and family interference. Before bed, I thought about something James used to say: "If you want to know someone's intentions, watch what they do when you stop giving." Tomorrow, I'd see exactly that. Saturday came colder than the forecast promised, the kind of cold that makes the air sharp in your nose. I dressed in layers, navy sweater under my coat, and slipped my notebook into my bag. The mediation was scheduled for 10 at the lawyer's office, a neutral setting, though I doubted anything about it would feel neutral. When I arrived, my lawyer, Mr. Keene, was already in the conference room, a pot of coffee steaming between two neat stacks of papers. Tyler came in 5 minutes late, hood up, hands jammed in his pockets. He didn't look at me right away. His eyes flicked to the coffee, the window, the floor. Anywhere but mine. Mr. Keene started, his voice calm but firm. "The purpose today is to clarify the situation, address the disputed accounts, and, if possible, discuss restitution." Tyler slouched in his chair. "I told you, it wasn't just me. Lincoln set up the applications. I didn't think it would stick to her like this." I kept my hands folded on the table. "You took my license. You let someone use it. You didn't tell me when the accounts appeared. All of that sticks to me." His jaw tightened. I was going to pay it off. "You didn't give me the chance. You didn't give me the truth," I said. Mr. Keene slid the police report across the table, tapping the section that read, "Known suspect, Tyler Rowe." "This is not a family squabble. It's a legal matter. Mrs. Rowe has taken all appropriate steps to protect herself. That will not change." Tyler leaned back, exhaling hard. "So what? I'm just the villain now?" "No," I said. "You're the one who did this. Villains are in stories. We're in real life." For a moment, he looked younger, almost the boy who used to help me shell peas in the summer. Then his eyes went flat again. "What do you want from me?" "I want my name cleared, every account closed, and a plan for repayment if any debt remains after the investigations," I said. "And I want you to get help." "Help?" he scoffed. "For whatever made you think this was acceptable," I replied. Mr. Keene outlined the restitution process. Supervised payments through his office, counseling attendance verified monthly. Tyler muttered that it sounded like parole. "Call it what you want," I said. "It's the only path forward that doesn't involve court." He stared at the table, then finally nodded once, sharp. "Fine." The meeting ended without handshakes. Tyler left first, pulling his hood up again. I stayed a moment longer, breathing in the quiet after the door closed. On the way home, I stopped at the bakery and bought myself a single almond pastry. At the kitchen table, I ate it slowly, each bite a reminder that not everything taken has to be replaced with bitterness. That afternoon, I went through the stack of mail again. One more provisional credit. The furniture order fully reversed. A letter from the social worker confirming my high-risk flag was active, and a postcard from Sophie, who had gone to visit her aunt. "Thinking of you." Don't let them wear you down. I pinned it to the corkboard above my desk. In the evening, Rebecca called. Dad says Tyler agreed to some kind of deal. He's sulking about it, but I think he knows you mean business. I don't mean business, I said. I mean to protect myself. There's a difference. Before bed, I wrote in my notebook. Met with Tyler. Agreement in place. No illusions. I slept better than I had in weeks. Not because the problem was solved, it wasn't, but because I'd seen him face me without the buffer of a phone or his mother's voice. The truth is clearer in person, even when it's ugly. Sunday morning brought sunlight through the blinds, a rare thing this time of year. I made coffee and stood by the window, watching the frost melt in small patches on the lawn. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like my day was already stolen before it began. The phone rang mid-morning. I let it go to voicemail, then listened. Garrett's voice, clipped and tight. Mom, I don't know what you said to Tyler, but he's a wreck. You've embarrassed this family enough. I hope you're happy. I deleted it without replaying. Rebecca came by just before lunch. She set a paper bag on the table. Bread from the bakery, still warm. Dad's furious, she said, sitting down. He says you're turning Tyler into some kind of criminal in the eyes of strangers. I tore a piece of bread, spread butter on it. Tyler's done that himself, I said. She watched me for a moment, then nodded. I told him I'm staying out of it. But the truth is, I'm on your side. He didn't like that. That's fine, I said. You're not required to like each other's truths. After she left, I decided to clear a shelf in the hall closet. Half the things in there were Garrett's, boxes he'd asked me to store just for a few weeks years ago. I moved them to the porch. If he wanted them, he could take them. If not, the donation truck came on Wednesday. Around 2, the phone rang again. This time, it was the social worker, Dana. I wanted to let you know we've documented all the steps you've taken, she said. If there's any retaliation or harassment, you can call us directly. I thanked her, and after we hung up, I realized how good it felt to have a lifeline that didn't demand anything from me in return. By late afternoon, I'd baked an apple crisp. Sophie stopped by, bringing back the container from the soup. We ate warm slices at the table. She told me about her aunt's garden, about the snowdrops already pushing through the soil. It was the kind of conversation where the details don't matter. What matters is that it leaves you lighter than you were before. That evening, I opened the mailbox and found a letter from the largest bank involved. After reviewing your case, we have determined that you are not responsible for the debt in question. The account has been closed. I read it twice, then set it on the table. It felt heavier than paper, in the best way. I thought about calling Garrett to tell him the news, but decided against it. Good news isn't a gift for people who've been rooting against you. It's something you keep quietly, like money in a safe. Before bed, I wrote in my notebook, first full clearance. More to come. Boundaries holding. I slept with the window cracked open a little, letting the cold air in. It felt like the house was breathing again. And so was I. Monday morning, the air was damp with the smell of rain, though the sky hadn't opened yet. I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee, reading over the latest stack of letters. Another creditor had cleared my name. This one for the personal loan Tyler had taken. That made 2 full wins. By mid-morning, Dana from APS called again. Just checking in, she said. Any new contact from Garrett or Tyler? Garrett left a message. I deleted it. Tyler hasn't called since the meeting. That's good, she said. Silence can mean they're accepting boundaries or plotting a way around them. Keep everything documented. I have, I told her. And I had. Every call, every letter, every visit logged in my neat handwriting. Around noon, Rebecca stopped by with a folder. Dad gave me this, she said, setting it on the table. Inside were printouts, Tyler's counseling intake forms. He started the program, she added. I don't know if it'll stick, but it's something. I flipped through the pages. His name printed neatly at the top of each, his signature at the bottom. It's not about sticking, I said. It's about starting. You can't get anywhere without that. In the afternoon, I drove to the grocery store. In the produce aisle, I ran into Mrs. Klein from church. She asked in that cautious way people do when they've heard rumors. How are you doing? Better than I was, I said, and getting better still. At home, I found a letter from the lawyer waiting in the mailbox. Inside was a summary of the provisional agreements, Tyler's repayment plan, contingent on any remaining balances after the creditor's decisions, and a stipulation that all payments go through the attorney's office. I signed the copy to acknowledge receipt and slid it into my case folder. Just before dinner, the phone rang. I recognized the number, Tyler's rehab facility. A man introduced himself as the counselor. Your grandson asked me to let you know he's here and that he's sorry. I thanked him but didn't ask to speak to Tyler. Sorry is a word I'll believe when I see it in actions, not just hear through a line. After dinner, I stood on the porch for a while, watching the clouds press low over the street. The rain finally started, soft at first, then steadier. I thought about how water wears down stone, not in a single storm, but over years. I've been on both sides of that equation, worn down, and now the one holding steady while others beat against me. Before bed, I wrote in my notebook, 2 debts cleared. Program started. Boundaries intact. I slept with the sound of rain against the window. It wasn't peaceful exactly, but it was steady, and that was enough. Tuesday morning brought a weak winter sun that made the frost sparkle like someone had dusted the street with sugar. I made tea instead of coffee. I wanted something slower, something that didn't jolt me into the day. The mail arrived early. On top of the pile was a letter from the last major creditor. My hands were steady as I opened it, though my heart was not. After reviewing your documentation, we have determined you are not responsible for the charges in question. This account has been closed in full. 3 full wins. All that remained was a small store card with a few $100s outstanding, the only thing Tyler might actually have to repay. I called Mr. Keene to give him the news. That's remarkable, he said. It's rare to have this many reversals in such a short time. You've been diligent. I've been exact, I corrected him. Diligence is doing the work. Exactness is making sure there's nothing for them to wriggle through. He laughed quietly. I'll update the file. Once the last account is closed, we'll move the restitution process forward. Late in the morning, there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, Tyler stood there. No hood this time, hands shoved deep into his coat pockets. He looked thinner than the last time I'd seen him. Gran, he said. Tyler. I wanted to say I'm sorry. For real. I didn't move from the doorway. Why now? He looked down at the porch boards. Because my counselor said if I don't start telling the truth, I'm going to lose everyone. And because you're the one I don't want to lose. I let the words hang in the cold air. You already lost my trust. That doesn't come back with a single sentence. I know. He shifted his weight. But I'm trying. And I'll pay back whatever's left. I want you to know that. I studied him for a long moment. His face was paler, his eyes clearer. Not redemption, but a beginning. Good, I said finally. You'll do it through Mr. Keene, and you'll keep doing your program. He nodded, relief flickering across his face. Okay. I didn't invite him in. Instead, I said, "Take care of yourself, Tyler," and closed the door gently. Inside, I stood for a moment, letting the quiet settle. That was the apology, I realized. Not the words, but the fact that I hadn't had to pull it out of him like a bad tooth. In the afternoon, I sorted through the case folder one last time. The police report, the certified mail receipts, the letters of clearance, all in order. I added today's date and a note. Apology received. Conditions set. Rebecca stopped by in the evening, bringing a small pot of stew. She sat at the table and listened while I told her about Tyler's visit. "Do you believe him?" she asked. "I believe he's starting," I said. "That's all I'll believe until I see the rest." She smiled faintly. "You sound like Grandpa. He never believed in grand gestures, just steady work." After she left, I ate a bowl of stew and washed the dish by hand. The house was warm, the kind of warmth that comes not just from the furnace, but from knowing the doors are locked, the windows shut, the walls sound. Before bed, I wrote in my notebook, "All major debts cleared. One balance remains. Apology noted." And then, under that, in smaller letters, "Not peace yet, but the ground is firm." I slept well. Not the restless sleep of someone waiting for the next blow, but the deep rest of someone who's decided she'll meet whatever comes with both feet planted. Wednesday felt different from the start. The air was still, the light soft, like the day knew it had nothing urgent to demand from me. I made oatmeal with cinnamon, sat at the kitchen table, and opened the last envelope from the stack. The small store card. Balance forgiven. 2 words. No conditions, no pending investigation. Just final. It was done. I set the letter down carefully, as if it might slip away if I handled it too roughly. For weeks, I'd been waking each morning with the sense that there was a fight waiting for me outside the bedroom door. Now, there was only my quiet kitchen, the hum of the fridge, the clink of my spoon in the bowl. At 9 o'clock, I called Mr. Keene. "All accounts closed," I told him. "Then restitution is just a formality," he said. "Tyler will still make the agreed payments to my office. Even if the debts are gone, it's part of his accountability." "Good," I said. "It's not about the money anymore." Later, I took a slow walk to the park. The frost had melted, leaving the grass dark and damp. A few children were playing near the swings, their laughter carrying in the cold air. I sat on a bench, hands wrapped around the thermos of tea I'd brought, and thought about how, not long ago, I would have filled this time with worry. Now, I could just sit. When I got home, the phone rang. I recognized the number, Tyler's facility. This time, it was him on the line. "Gran," he said, "I heard the last one's cleared. I'm glad." "So am I. I'm going to keep with the program. I want to do better, not just for you, for me." "That's the only way it works," I said. A pause. Then softly, "Thank you for not giving up on me." "I didn't," I said. "I just stopped letting you take me down with you." We hung up, and I realized there was no knot in my chest. Just space. That afternoon, I gathered every document, the reports, the letters, the receipts, and put them in a large manila envelope. On the front, I wrote in thick black marker, "Keep for records." I slid it into the back of the hall closet, behind the winter blankets. Not hidden, but not where I'd trip over it. Rebecca came by after work, cheeks pink from the cold. "It's over," I told her. She smiled. "I'm proud of you, Grandma." "I'm proud of me too," I said, and meant it. We had tea and the last of the stew. She asked if I felt lighter. "No," I said. "I feel heavier. But it's a good kind of heavy, like a coat that keeps out the wind." After she left, I stood at the window, watching the streetlights blink on one by one. My life didn't look different from the outside. Same house, same kitchen, same woman in the glass. But inside, everything had shifted. I was no longer a soft landing for other people's bad decisions. I was my own ground, steady and unshaken. Before bed, I opened my notebook one last time and wrote, "Case closed. Name restored. Boundaries permanent." Underneath, I added the only advice worth giving after all this. You are allowed to protect yourself, even from the people you love. And then, because this story isn't just mine, I'll tell you what I wish someone had told me sooner. If you're reading this, and someone is using your kindness like it's theirs to spend, stop. You don't owe anyone the destruction of your peace. Draw the line. Lock the door. Keep the records. You will not regret it.